Now, the other day in a comment section, I had a viewer ask a question, and it was a good question. Since we do not believe in putting our fingers on the trigger until we're ready to shoot, how come is it so many people on the firing line actually put their finger in the trigger guard when they're cocking the hammer? Well, that is because, let me give you an example. It is very awkward to try to cock the hammer with your finger outside of the trigger guard. You need that leverage. By the way, cocking the hammer and pulling the trigger, you just don't do it unless you're in a safe position, because one bump of that trigger and it's a bad day. Alright guys, hello everybody out there, and welcome back to 11 Bang Bang. I'm Garrett, and if you've watched our channel in the past, you've known that we've already done the Heritage Rough Rider 22 and the Ruger Wrangler. Well, today I'm here to talk about something that's a completely different animal. This is the Ruger Single 6. This is not your everyday budget 22 revolver. This is the old school revolver. It's the one that came, first as far as these single action 22 guns go. And it goes back a long ways, all the way back into the 1950s. And it has basically the same action as the Ruger Wrangler. However, it's made out of way better steel, has adjustable sights. Basically, it's a Ruger Blackhawk in a 22. And it has the transfer safety bar. So if you are used to the Heritage Rough Rider, you will know there's usually a safety right there. Not so on these. This has the Ruger transfer safety bar, which means you can carry all 6 safely, but you do not need that safety on there. Like I said, this gun also has the adjustable sights, a really nice big foresight, and you may say, what is wrong with that gun? It looks like it has some finish wore off of it and a little rust. And well, that is because this gun has been around my family for the last over 15 years. It belongs to my brother-in-law. It has the 9-inch barrel, of course, and he has actually had a bunch of these Ruger Single 6s. He's been collecting them for years. This one is my favorite. I shoot it best out of all of them that he has. Been shooting these guns ever since I could hold a revolver up. And like I said in the Ruger Wrangler video, a lot of people are concerned about this transfer bar safety. They say it looks weak, like it moves around. In 20 plus years of shooting these guns, I have never known one to even go out of time. And I'm sure some of them do somewhere, it's just not been my experience. Whereas with the 4-click style hammers, the Rough Riders and the Colts, even the original Colts, they do from time to time get out of time. Not really an issue with this. Like I said in the other video, Ruger has spent decades building a reputation of the strongest, most durable, most reliable single action revolver out there. And it's just what it is. The pinnacle of the single action revolver, in my opinion. Historically, I do prefer the 4-click hammers, but this is not a historical gun. This is just the next step in the evolution of the single action army. And like I said, it takes a few things that the single action army had issues with, such as now, instead of having to put the gun on half cock, there is no half cock on these guns, unless, now this is the caveat, there were a few of these made before the early 1970s that did not have the transfer safety bar system in them. Ruger Bearcats, many of those do not have the transfer safety bar system in them unless you get one of the modern ones. But 99% of these that you're going to run into will have that transfer safety bar system in them. And so they're perfectly fine to carry with 6. No half cock notch in this gun, it's just either all the way down or all the way back. The way that you load this gun is you simply open the loading gate, and a lot of people complain that these are more stiff than like your Heritage Rough Rider. That's because when you're opening the loading gate, it's actually pressing down on the spring and lowering the bolt that is in the frame there, so that it frees up your cylinder to load without having to cock the hammer. Alright, let's go ahead, we're going to load this up. My fingers are a little bit cold, so don't mind me if I drop a few of these little shells. Now, when I did the review of the Ruger Wrangler, I mentioned that one of the positives that the Heritage Rough Rider has over the Wrangler is because it's made of better steel, you can put a 22 Magnum cylinder in it for very cheap, actually. And then you've got a fairly formidable, some people would even consider it for self-defense carry with the 22 Magnum. Not myself personally. I wouldn't mind carrying one out here on the pastures in 22 Magnum for things like snakes. Oop, I knew I was going to drop one. Things like snakes, badgers, and that sort of thing. But the Ruger Wrangler, you cannot load a 22 Magnum cylinder in it, and the reason they don't make one for it is because it's made out of what I believe is a zinc alloy, which they don't feel is quite strong enough to hold up to the 22 Magnums. That's fine, that gun is absolutely wonderful for what it is. However, if you want to get a Ruger with a 22 Magnum cylinder, look no further than one of these bad boys. Like I've said before, and I'll say it again, we can talk about Heritage Rough Riders and Ruger Wranglers all day long. Doesn't matter, because when you come to the Ruger Single 6, it's the king of the hill. More expensive king of the hill, but the king of the hill. All right, let's shoot this thing. Alright, so to unload your Ruger Single 6, simply open the loading gate, and it's hard to do this in front of camera. I usually place my hand over the top of the frame like this and use my thumb to rotate the cylinder, and use this finger on the ejector rod, and you just spit them all out like so. Now, when I was talking about the Ruger Wrangler in that episode, I mentioned that should you be right here and accidentally go too far past the click, like right there, on the Ruger Wrangler you can simply revolve the cylinder backwards and come back to it, but that's not the case on these and most revolvers. You have to bring the cylinder all the way back around so that you get back in line again. That's one advantage that I feel like the Wrangler has over the Single 6. However, it is the only advantage that I feel the Wrangler has over the Single 6. And just load it back up again. Of course, loading all 6 because it's perfectly fine. If you want to load 5 because that's what you do on all your single actions, that's perfectly fine too. You want to load 1 because that's how you want to do it, or maybe you have 1 bullet, that's perfectly fine too. There we go, all 6. Shut that, make sure you lock your cylinder into place, otherwise your hammer may not work. Let's try this two-handed. Looks like this is going to have to be a two-handed can shoot today. Just shaking like a leaf. There we go. That's the thing. These long barrel guns are more accurate from the bench. However, if you're somebody like me, you hold it out there with one hand, after just a few seconds you get shaky. So, because of course it weighs more on the end, so it could be a detriment. But like I said, of course it's a much more accurate gun than I am. And click. Alright, let's go work on the rail. And click. That wasn't too bad. What I love about shooting a single action 22, I don't have to worry about the shells or the casings because I'm not going to reload them. Therefore, I don't have to pick up that brass. Alright, Caleb's going to take a few cracks at it with the old Ruger Single 6.
shots.
Pretty sweet. Alright, so now the positives and the negatives of the Ruger Single 6 versus the Ruger Wrangler and the Heritage Rough Rider. Like I said, the Wrangler has the ability to spin the cylinder backwards, and that's literally the only thing I think that's better. Now, what's the negatives? Well, like I said in my other video, for the price of a Ruger Single 6, you can actually buy 2 Ruger Wranglers, or possibly 3 Heritage Rough Riders. They're not a budget gun, but that's okay. They're a better gun. You get what you pay for in this situation. And so I'm not even really going to compare them because, you know, it's apples to oranges. It's not the same gun. The finish is better, the action is smoother than both of them, and it's just all around better gun. But anyway, trust in God, keep your powder dry. And you know the only thing that's better than a Ruger Single Action 22? That's 2 Ruger Single Action 22s. Bye. Hi. Hi.
Hi to you too.
What?
Hi to you too.